Now, a growing number of parents are turning to educational games and gadgets to give their babies a head start. But a Brisbane-based psychologist is warning they could be doing more harm than good.
Dr. Michael Nagel says we should be letting kids be kids. So we're going to hear from him in a tick. But first, here's what parents had to say about the products.
But I don't know whether it works, made a difference. I found that they were a bit overwhelming for the child. They couldn't watch it for more than 5 minutes.
So they're quite sort of educational, yeah. I think maybe it helps a bit, but I wouldn't say it would help a lot.
You've got to have a balance. So if they play, that's great, but if you start teaching them things, I mean, my 2-year-old knows all his ABCs and everyone at daycare thinks he's fantastic and thinks he's really intelligent, so that doesn't, that's great.
Well, Dr. Michael Nagel has examined the effect on children in a new book called Nurturing a Healthy Mind, and he joins us now from Brisbane. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What sort of a damage can these products do to young children?
Well, I think if you couple the products with some of the enrichment programs and you try to extend children, there are studies in the United States that are showing a huge amount of stress and anxiety in children as young as 5 and 6. And considering that the brain doesn't really fully develop till we're in our 3rd decade of life and it's very vulnerable in those young stages, we should be mindful of finding a balance between what we want to do to our children and what they need to do themselves.
Michael, every parent thinks their kid is advanced for their age and they believe that being a good parent, you've got to keep them going and do the right thing. Where is that balance? Give us a line.
Well, the balance lies in allowing children to be children themselves and making sure that not every moment is a teachable moment. The brain is very, very adept at learning given the right opportunity and the right environment, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to hyperstimulate children. Often it just means making sure there's lots of language-rich types of things around books and making sure that the kids have opportunities to experiment and explore.
But a lot of kids, a lot of parents would like their children to have some sort of skill set before they start school, whether they can recognise letters or numbers. Is that just irrelevant? Is that not necessary? Should schools be the ones teaching them? Should parents be the ones letting them play in the sand?
Well, I think if you look at, and we often look at other countries and what they do in terms of advancing their children or schools, it's interesting to note that, many Scandinavian countries who do very well in sort of literacy don't actually formally start teaching their kids literacy until they're 8 years of age. And I think what's happened in many Western countries in particular is there's sort of this academic inflation where we're trying to get kids, get their academic CVs up to scratch by the time they're 5 years of age, when in fact we might be stressing them more than anything.
Okay, what about babies and toddlers? Like on Meet the Fockers, there were the flashcards and things like that. Is that the way to do it?
Well, there isn't any scientific evidence, any empirical evidence that says that actually might do anything to enhance their learning or their smarts, for want of a better term. And so again, if you're bombarding children with stimuli that they're not developmentally ready for, you might do more harm than good. And it's funny when you watch it because it wasn't long ago there was an infomercial in Australia showing children as young as 2 saying things like elbow, elbow. And I don't think they're actually reading the card. They're probably just mimicking their parents who spend a disproportionate amount of time going elbow, elbow.
But is there any major damage or harm that can be done? So say the parents that have been doing, the parents that are doing it now, you talk about sort of boredom and frustration, but is it a problem? Should they be alarmed or not too concerned?
Not necessarily. I think, again, it's about finding a balance and not trying to overeducate and hyperstimulate your children. And it's also about dispelling a whole lot of neuromyths that say, if you engage in these types of activities over and over and over again, then your children will be smarter. And there isn't any evidence to suggest this.
Okay. Look, I'm glad you've cleared it up. I've already put an order in for 2 of your books for my 2 eldest daughters who want to do the right thing by their kids. And they call me a dinosaur because I keep saying, look, get off Google. Parenting's all common sense.
It's interesting to note that study after study tells us that the most important thing that parents can do is love their children and have positive relationships. Yes. And if you do that, you're already ahead of the game.